Well, it is now time for weather with Nebraska Extension ag climatologist and Market Journal's chief meteorologist Al Dutcher. Well, Al, I mentioned it at the top of the show. Some of our viewers might have caught some rain this past week, while others are still waiting. What can we expect as we turn to the week ahead?
Well, Bryce, we've definitely seen the cool down as that trough moved across the northern plains and then intensified over the Great Lakes. We've seen energy move around that trough, cause some showers and thunderstorms to develop across the state. The most concentrated area when you accumulated all the precipitation events for precipitation was in areas of central and south central Nebraska, where we had some fairly widespread 1 to 3 inch totals. They dropped off significantly both west and east of this area. And then we were looking around the remainder of the state, just some small pockets of a 1/2 inch to 1 inch precipitation, but for most areas less than a 1/4 inch was the common theme. And unfortunately, as we go forward in time, looking at some more warm temperatures coming in, not as hot as what the models were previously stating a couple days ago, but still warm enough to cause some problems, and unfortunately not much in the way of any significant moisture. So let's take a look at the upper air models and see what we have in store. First thing I'll draw your attention to is you've got the ridge to the west of us. Just a weak trough moving across the northern plains, may generate a few isolated showers during the overnight hours, but overall not much in the way of widespread precipitation. Low pressure at the surface in northeastern Montana will help to give some lift up in the northern plains, but the primary focus for most of the moisture will still remain to the south of us. Now as we go into tomorrow, that high pressure ridge starts to build back up toward the north and starts to shift toward the east. So we're going to see some of the 90s from the western part of the state start to come into central and eastern Nebraska, and we'll see mid-90s most likely in portions of western Nebraska. But once again, the precip stays to the south of us. By the time we get into Monday, that ridge starts to really push its way into the central plains. Temperatures are going to be widespread 90s across most of the state. We might be looking at the mid-90s across portions of the western third of the state. Just a slight chance for some scattered thunderstorm activities as that warm air starts to build toward the east. And by the time we get to Tuesday, high pressure firmly in control over the central and western Corn Belt. Low pressure at the surface in Minnesota will help to give some lift, but there's not a lot in the way of moisture chances. Basically, most of it will remain to the east of us. And unfortunately, with all that moisture to the south of us, we're going to deal with some high dew point temperatures. It's going to be very sticky conditions. On Wednesday, that trough tries to move across the northern plains. Low pressure develops over southeastern portions of North Dakota. That will help to, once again, induce a little bit of lift over the Great Lakes, but there's just not a lot of moisture in place to get lifted up and interact with this front. And then by Thursday, once again, this ridge starts to build back in as that trough quickly moves toward the Great Lakes. So we're going to see our temperatures back up into the mid to upper 90s, unfortunately, and nothing in the way of any significant moisture. Maybe just a little bit of monsoon moisture gets into the southwest, but that looks even to be a little bit iffy. And then on Friday, this ridge expands to cover most of the eastern 2/3 of the United States. So we're going to continue that warm trend. We'll be watching that trough in the Pacific Northwest coming across over next weekend, possibly cooling conditions down slightly, but it doesn't look like there's going to be anything in the way of significant moisture moving into the state at least through the end of next week. Further out, 8 to 14, that takes into consideration late next week into the following Tuesday. The above normal temperatures are expected to continue. And in terms of precipitation, the center of the below normal precipitation right over the central plains. If we want to make things even worse, let's take a look out into the future. This was the latest issuance by the CPC. This is a preliminary outlook for the month of August, and this basically our forecast takes us into the early part of August. Looks like we're going to see above normal temperatures centered over the south central United States. As we look at precipitation, widespread below normal precipitation is forecasted for the central and eastern Great Lakes, and we have a slight chance here in Nebraska for below normal precipitation. Little bit unusual to see this kind of a signature over the Great Lakes. Based on the way the patterns have been, I was expecting it more to be shifted toward the northwest. We'll wait to see, but it certainly looks like it's going to verify out for a substantial portion of the Corn Belt, at least for the first half of August, let alone going into the second half of August. Now, as we look out into the future, August, September, October, the preliminary outlook is that just a slight chance for above normal temperatures over Nebraska, Iowa, greater chance over the southwestern United States, and that would indicate we have a trough over the northern plains. And in terms of precipitation, unfortunately, the dry trend continues.